Be the Talk, episode 214, featuring Barry Phillips. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Barry Phillips. Barry, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to talk, Nathan. Lovely to meet you. And come on, let's do this.
Barry Phillips qualified as an attorney in the United Kingdom and now works in business, leading the multi-award-winning training company Legal Island. This company has won the best place to work in Ireland on many occasions. Barry Phillips, welcome to the talk.
It's great to be here, Nathan. Hello.
Well, your talk is called Why It's Time to Ditch Open Door Policies in the Workplace. It is a recent branded talk, and you went through this shock of being the best place to work, and then in 1 month, as a small business, not one, not two, but 4 of your top employees quit out of nowhere. What was that shock like? And please take us behind that moment.
That shock was huge because until that happened, I thought I was a great business leader. I thought I knew everything about running an SME. But when I look back on it, it was my most spectacular and, if you like, most welcome failure. And I learned a huge amount from that. And I began to, after that moment, build my company, I think, properly, and drop in proper communication channels. So at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could have happened to me. But I realize now it was actually one of the best things that could have happened.
Well, I'm wondering if it was, I love that you called it a welcome opportunity, but I'm wondering if it was welcome right when it happened. How long did it take for you to see the blessing in it and to have a growth mindset approach instead of just reactive?
Yeah, great question. It took me probably the best part of 12 months to actually objectively analyze and for others to help me see what had happened. And it was really only after that period of time that I began to look at it and actually learn the lessons. You know, a lot of business people, they rate failure, and some say it's really important, you're stepping stones to success. But I wonder how many people actually learn what needs to be learned from their failures. And it certainly took me a long time to learn what I needed to learn from that particular episode and that development of my business.
Well, Barry, it's all relative. I mean, for some people, 12 months is a very long time. For other people, it's not much time at all. I really appreciate your candor in that. I think that, you know, for an award-winning legal firm, and the kinds of, the kind of personalities that would work in a legal firm, I would imagine that it would take a little bit of time. 12 months sounds kind of fast, in my estimation, to really come around it and see it as the opportunity, as the welcome, opportunity that you now call it. My question, at this point is, I mean, were you still winning awards during that transition point, or did you take a little bit of a break from the awards as you went and worked on the whole thing? That's a little bit of a candid question, but I got to ask it.
No, that's a great question too. I took a moment out and I thought, okay, rather than, go for the next award, then go for the best consultant that can help me here and can come in and sort of help me see perhaps what I can't see. And so there was a good moratorium on awards for about 5 years until I began to get the processes in place. And then I got back to the awards and thought, okay, let's have a look at my business now and let's see if I can go for awards that I really feel would reflect on the company and the work that I've done in that period of time.
Yeah, well, and so you're really introducing the idea into the conversation of systems thinking, the idea that there are outcomes and there are inputs, and you kept getting great outputs until you hit this hiccup and people started, resigning. And what I love about your talk is you start talking about the different cultures, the different preferences, the different backgrounds, very similar to the conversation that we just had, here on this broadcast, about different cultures and different ways of relating, and what seems perfectly normal and friendly to one person is a little bit unsafe or alarming to another. So if you can kind of go behind that piece of your talk, because you get some great storytelling, there's emotion, there's all, beautiful story about a dog that just tugged at my heartstrings that we don't have time to get into right now. That's why I give the link in the show notes. But if you can talk about what you discovered about the different preferences people have and what another employer or executive who's listening to this right now, what they could do to put that into place to run a more efficient, effective, and personable business.
Sure. The big mistake, just to try and summarize it in one or two sentences, the big mistake that I've made was to basically have an open door to my office, which gave me a get out and get out of jail card free, if you like. So when something happened, which was clearly because of a communication glitch between me, my employees, I could always fall back on it and say, well, they could have come in at any point through that door to tell me they weren't happy, or they felt that they were being undervalued, underpaid, or they wanted to go somewhere else. And so it just gave me an opportunity a ready-made excuse not to give any proper consideration to how to do meaningful communication and feedback within the company. And I asked myself the big question afterwards, why isn't it that they weren't coming through that open door? Because I always thought of myself as being a very approachable boss. I never lost my temper. I never started shouting at people. I thought I was very approachable. So I thought if there was going to be one type of boss that they would come to through that open door, it was me. But I then began to analyze it, and I thought there's lots of reasons. Culturally, we're very different. The British and the Irish, we don't do direct feedback very well. The Germans excel in it. If you ask a German whether they've enjoyed your food, they'll tell you if they haven't, But the British and Irish would say, well, oh no, it's a bit different. And yeah, it was quite nice and so on and so forth. So culturally, there's lots of reasons why somebody won't come in through that door. But there's also the big one of safety to speak, particularly in small organizations. However approachable the boss may be, if there's only 15 or 20 in that company, it's not realistic for the business leader to expect that employee to come in and say, look, I think you really screwed up at that meeting yesterday. I think you've got the strategy wrong. They have a salary that's depending on their employment, mortgage, family to feed and so on. I just wasn't being realistic in expecting them to come through that door and to give me the sort of feedback that I needed.
Barry, I think it's just brilliant because you're really debunking this myth. It's a myth of, I have an open door policy. Mm-hmm. And I think this has been going on in the United States and probably globally for at least the last 30 to 40, maybe longer than that, years. This idea that is very management oriented, and we're no longer in a management, big business, big company world. It's more entrepreneurial. It's more small business. It's about emotional intelligence, and it's all about culture and talent retention. And so if you're clinging on to whatever it is, it might even be a valid principle. But what I hear you saying is you had this kind of like a genie or something that you could rub. It was your open door. And so it wasn't on you as an employer to go to them. They had, they had the open door and they could come to you. And this conversation is really about taking more responsibility and how you learned to overcome that, take even more responsibility, for, owning that piece as a business owner. So any final words, and then we're going to actually pivot over to the Blitz round, but I want to make sure I didn't put any, words in your mouth on that. Thank you for being so transparent, and I'll give you the final word on that.
Yeah, I think, just to say there's huge advantages if you do shut the door, because it will force business leaders and people managers to really think about how to do meaningful communication and to set down the communication channels. There's also many other advantages. It means that business leaders will be leading businesses, which is what they should be doing, rather than just sitting the other side of the open door and answering all sorts of queries that are coming from employees. And it's very easy to develop a dependency culture. Then you just get employees coming in time and time again to ask you as a business leader all these questions that they should be resolving themselves. So there's all sorts of benefits from this of closing or abandoning an open door policy completely.
We have been enjoying this conversation with Barry Phillips. His talk is called Why It's Time to Ditch Open Door Policies in the Workplace. It's an idea whose time has come and probably gone. And we are going to pivot over to you, Talk Universe, because we're going to be talking about the Blitz Round in just a moment. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with Barry Phillips. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm going to ask Barry a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. Barry, are you ready?
Hit me, Nathan.
All right. Did you apply to speak or were you invited?
I applied to something like about 5 TEDx venues throughout the UK. 3 ignored me. 1 got back and said thanks, but no thanks. And 1 said yes. Okay, let's do this.
Those were typical results if you double it by 2 or 3, in my case. So congratulations, sir. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I'm a memorizer.
How did that serve you?
Maybe that's for others to judge, but it helps me go onto the stage and think, okay, I know what I'm going to say, and I'm going to be okay. So it's certainly in terms of confidence. It's what I'm used to. The big ones I memorize. Others I will blend or I will ad lib.
Okay.
But the big ones.
So you walk out on stage, Barry. Did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I had a few butterflies. I always think if you never have butterflies before a presentation, that's the time when it's going to go wrong. You've got to respect the occasion. And if you haven't got butterflies and you're not a bit nervous, something's wrong, So, but I visualize my butterfly and my nerves as butterflies, and I just try and see them lining up alongside me and actually working with me and moving with me rather than fluttering everywhere. So it's a visualization technique, which I think works quite well.
Barry, what's a tip, tool, or a technique that helped you?
I think just having a friend whose advice you can trust on it. You've got to get somebody who will be critical and will help you. And you've got to have somebody that will tell you when some content is not working. If you go to the wrong people and they just say, Barry, that's fine. It's of no use to you. And you get one chance to get this right. So you have to really work on it.
We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Barry Phillips. His talk is called Why It's Time to Ditch Open Door Policies in the Workplace. If you want to check out this excellent talk, you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We will have a link to it right there. And if you want to be able to connect with Barry, his website is legal-island.com. There is a hyphen, legal-island.com. And we'll be back with Barry Phillips. It is time for the final word of advice in just a moment. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Barry Phillips. It is time for the final word of advice to Talk Universe.
I'm going to finish with a quote from, I think it was Oscar Wilde. It may not be, but it was certainly an Irish writer. And he said about communication, he said, the danger of communication is to assume it has already taken place. And that's a big thing, I think, in many organizations, that managers, they just assume that the communication has happened, or that because it's been said, it's been understood. And communication is a lot more complex than that. So I think my advice is just focus a lot on the power and the importance of communication. And the more time you spend on it, the more you'll get back in rewards.
Barry Phillips, thanks so much for carving time out of your schedule and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe today.
It's been a pleasure, Nathan. It really has. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.